Welcome back, friends. So in the last section, we made an introduction to loops, and we learned about what the dry code principle is. And as I said, in order to be able to write dry code, one of the tools that we're going to use is loops. So that means in this lesson, we're going to play around with the while loop. Now, like I said before, the syntax of the while loop is very similar to an if statement. So that means it takes a condition, and then while that condition is true, it will repeat code that we put in a set of curly braces. So an if statement is very similar, except it doesn't repeat the code, right? It just runs one time, but a while loop will continue to run as long as the condition is true, right? So I'll give you an example. In the previous lesson, we talked about an example, how to write numbers from 1 to 10. We said, well, yeah, that's not a very good approach because there's you sitting in your desk forever typing code. Well, of course, that's not a dry code, but let's see what it is. So we'll make it with while loops. So first, let's define a variable called number. We could name it anything but number, but here we start at 1. Then we have our while loop with a condition. So I say while loop, parenthesis, and curly braces. Okay, so now our condition is going to come to the inside of this parenthesis here. So I'll say number is less than 11. So as long as this number is less than 11, I mean that to be true. Then the code, which is inside the curly braces here, will be run. Cool. So now all I want this code to do is log to the console, just the number, right? So I'll say console.log number. And then every time after we run the code, I'm going to say add +1 to this number. So I'll say number ++. Okay? So this is a different syntax here. This is basically shorthand. Normally we could write number equal to number +1. And yeah, they're exactly the same. Well, they do the same thing anyway. So the very first time this code runs, number is equal to run. So 1 is less than 11, and that makes it true. All right, so that's going to print out number 1, and then it will add 1 to the number, and then runs again. Cool. So it'll check to see if the number, which is now 2, is less than 11, and that's true. So it prints the number 2 again, and it adds 1 to that number. So now it's 3, and it's true again. So it prints number 3, adds 1 to the number, which is 4, and so on and so forth, until the final time the number is 10, and 10 is, of course, less than 11, so it prints out number 10. Now, we add 1 to the number, and that makes it 11. And then it tries to run it again, and it realizes, whoa, 11 is not less than 11. So then it's done. It finishes, and that's that. So now I have to save this and go to my console. And here I'll refresh the page, and sure enough, as you can see, we log all the numbers between 1 and 11. And what we've done here, friends, we didn't write console.log again and again and again, just like I showed you before. Instead, we used this while loop so that we can support the concept of dry code. Okay, so I could also try changing this a little bit. I could also say 1 is less than or equal to 10 instead of writing less than 11. And then, as you know, the result would still be the same. Similarly, I could do things where I'm just not adding 1 every time. So if I want to count by 2, I would just write number plus equals 2 rather than just adding 1. And the statement number plus equal is another shorthand. So normally we could write number equals to number plus 2. Okay, so these two statements are basically the same. I just wanted to show you another bit of shorthand. Okay, so now this time we're going to say 1 less than 11, and that is true, so we log 1. And we're going to add 2 to the number, so it's 3 now. 3 is less than 11, and that's true. So write 3, and so on. And then when we're 9, and then it adds 2, now the number becomes 11. 11 is less than 11. Whoa, no, it is false. All right, so it stops. So yeah, we just wrote it one console.log in a loop, and that takes care of the rest of it for us. Nice. So I save this, go to my console. So here I'll refresh the page and we see this is the result as expected. So according to the condition that we want, this code changes. But this is our while loop syntax strategy, generally. So an important point about loops is that our condition should return a false value at some point. For example, if we don't write this number plus equal 2 statement here, then the number never changes value, and this condition is going to be true always and forever, right? Because 1 is always going to be less than 11. So then we see an endless loop here, right? So we see console log 1 endless times. That's why we call them infinite loops. So in order to avoid this situation, we do need to be sure that this condition is going to be false at some point. So if I save all this, go to my console. When I refresh the page, you'll see that we console log 1 again and again and again and again. So, well, I say infinite or, endlessly or from now until the end of time, but basically it can crash a browser. So you don't want to do it, right? You don't want to cause anybody any more crashes than they're already doing. So why does it cause a crash? Well, it takes up all the memory in JavaScript, something that you don't ever want to do. And let's say rather than running infinite loops, most browsers will nowadays actually stop it and then alert you that there is some bad code written. There's some infinite loop that's running, and whoa, I don't want to do that. So it throws up an error. So that means that we've got to make a condition false at some point. If we don't, it just keeps running on and on and on and on. Okay? So I think you get the point. Don't do that. Infinite loops, bad. Infinite loops, bad. Dry code, good. Okay? So in this lesson, we learned while loop. While loop, good. Infinite loop, bad. Okay? So on the other side of this break, we are going to continue in the next section.